Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den, with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. I'm glad to have you back all here with me today. We are going to be covering on, well, it's a requested video on how to more practically play the various different kinds of alignment types. Now, I've kind of got into all 9 of the alignments into some degree of detail or another. So it should give you an idea on how the alignments kind of feel, how you can portray the characters. Certainly, by no means did every single video cover every single little extra detail and facet of each individual alignment. As I've said and repeated to say and will say again right now, the alignments themselves are just so broad, so broadly written and described in order to allow for such a wide range of different character types that can fall underneath each alignment. On the one hand, that makes things really easy in order to say, well, my character's lawful good. But on the other hand, if the DM and the player and the other players at the table are not necessarily in sync or in agreement with how particular alignments end up getting portrayed by the player, they can get a little bit nebulous, a little bit. That ill-defined nature of the alignments can sort of play against you in some regards. But these are some tips, tricks, strategies, and ideas for how to play your alignment a little bit more effectively than you might otherwise be able to, maybe at first glance. First and foremost, as always, with so many different things, just talk with the DM. Talk with your storyteller. See what they think, get their input, their advice, because they're running the game. They're going to be the ones telling you, hey, I think you're kind of straying out of lawful good or chaotic good or whatever alignment you might be. And, just straight up ask them. It's like, well, what would you like to see that you feel would make my character kind of be more within the scope of the alignment? Now, your input is valuable too, however, so all you DMs, storytellers, MCs, whatever you may want to call yourselves, listen to your players' input, because while yes, you have final say over different things and events and aspects of the game, you still want your players to have fun. You don't want to make the game a chore, because if they just come to game night and they just look bored or frustrated, or they're constantly just feeling defeated, they're not going to want to play anymore. And some DMs love that. I've known more than a few myself that just love punishing their players at every single turn, who, for whatever reason, just want to keep viewing the players as the enemy rather than friends that they're trying to tell a good story with. It just, I don't know. If that's what you go for, I'm not going to yuck your yum, but it's good to keep your friends and players at the table, and talking with them, talking with each other, is the first and most effective step towards doing that. But that said, focusing more on the player side of things, there's certain things you can do. I'd mentioned before that the lawful alignments can typically fall into the category of lawful stupid. In particular, lawful neutral and lawful good will run into this a bit, whereas evil, given evil's self-serving nature, they tend to be not necessarily lawful stupid, but they fall more into evil stupid, if that makes any sense at all. Stupid evil, rather. But going back to the lawful aspect of things, particularly for lawful neutral and to a certain extent lawful good, these are character types that are focused on the law. Now, lawful neutral is especially focused on the letter of the law. They're not so concerned with spirit of the law like lawful good might be. They are going to be concerned with the letter of the law. So more than many of the other alignments, probably any of them actually, they're going to have a big problem with law breaking. So for the party's rogues, bards, rangers who may favor more underhanded approaches to things, planting evidence, sabotage, assassinations, robbery, these characters typically will have a huge problem with that, and a lot of players will focus on that and create a certain amount of tension within the party dynamic, which a little bit's fine. those inter-character conflicts can be a whole lot of fun and add a great deal of role-playing value to the games overall. But some players can also get really carried away and just seek to punish the other players at every opportunity, ruining cleverly put together plans, these carefully hatched roles. So how do you get around this when a lawful neutral character is paired up with characters of a decidedly more chaotic alignment? Well, first is the if they don't see anything, they can't say anything kind of thing. And for those lawful neutral players, while the character won't necessarily like the idea, they by no means can enforce any laws if they don't see any law breaking occurring. So they may reach an ill-defined understanding with some of the other members of the party of, well, you know what, you're going to do what you're going to do. If I catch you, we'll have a problem. If I don't catch you, though, well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that now, can I? Some DMs may see that kind of a mindset as maybe a bit more neutral rather than lawful neutral. They may give you a few points to put squarely into that camp, but technically it is a way around it. And it can be kind of interesting to have that dynamic in there. It's one that should develop over time because right away, early on in an adventure, unless you're role-playing characters who have known each other for a while and already have this sort of implicit understanding, a lawful neutral character, some arbiter or sheriff or law enforcement kind of oriented individual, will probably try to arrest the rogue. In fact, that could be an easy way for getting these kinds of character types together. But over the course of those initial adventures, the lawful neutral character is confronted with the fact that this chaotic neutral rogue, this chaotic good bard, whatever non-lawful alignments there are there, they can't deny that character's effectiveness. They look at that and say, you know what, I don't like the methods, but these guys do get things done, and it does free me up in a way to enforce the law in other areas in my own fashion. Think like I was going to use Jim Gordon from Batman as an example, but he works pretty closely with the vigilante on a regular basis. But it's still an example of a character in a law enforcement position who, while he does enforce the laws, on occasion, maybe even with some frequency, passes information along to Gotham City's best-known vigilante, the Batman. While that might earn him some points in more of the chaotic spectrum of things, or even move him away from lawful to maybe more of a true neutral position, Jim Gordon is still focused on trying to maintain law and order within Gotham, but the threats that Gotham faces are so massive, so bizarrely powerful and chaotic and just overwhelmingly violent that they need Batman in order to help take care of things. So, in the name of enforcing a greater lawful aspect of the city, they go to a more chaotic element. A chaotic element that does have Gotham's best interests in mind, but still a vigilante element. So that kind of a dynamic is portrayed pretty well and pretty famously throughout a number of different sources that I'm sure you, my fellow geeks, probably enjoy regularly. I know I certainly do. I love Batman. Who doesn't love Batman? But that's just an example there. Now with Lawful Good, a lot of the same things can arise, a lot of the same issues, because it's Lawful Good. They're focused on enforcing a lawful alignment. However, Lawful Good is focused on the spirit of the law as well as what the letter is, and they tend to take more of a compassionate view. They're willing to grant a greater degree of leniency or even clemency. So they may encounter, say, again, a chaotic neutral rogue or bard, But if that person's willing to do good, even if it's through underhanded means, if they're willing to assist the lawful good character in bringing justice, law, order, and restoring a certain amount of balance or safety for the citizens of a region, locale, city, village, whatever, they'll be more inclined to take a favorable view of that character, even if they don't enjoy their methods. Another good example of this is actually from the Dresden Files, where Harry Dresden, the wizard detective living in Chicago, regularly teams up with a holy knight, definitely a lawful good character, but the knight does not always take a favorable view of Harry's methods. At one point, they have a human servant of a demon cornered and trapped, and Harry just wants to finish the job right then and there, especially after all the pain and damage this person's inflicted, not only just on Harry and his friends, but just over the centuries, because he's a willing collaborator with a demon from hell. But the Knights of the Cross, once an enemy surrenders to them, they are compelled and beholden to needing to grant that prisoner some sort of clemency in an attempt to save their souls and redeem them. And in a very poignant example there, one of the Knights of the Cross reveals that he used to be in league with these demons as well. He was on his way to becoming a Denarian. But because of the other knights, they managed to save his soul and redeem him, and now he is a Knight of the Cross and is a very powerful warrior and a very powerful force for good. And then, they leave, and then Harry start to leave, and Harry turns around and just starts beating the crap out of this guy with a bat, smashing up his hands and hampering his ability to use magic later on. And they're not happy about it, but then they find a moment as they're driving away to just kind of laugh at the shock and surprise on the sorcerer's face as Harry went to take the bat to him. So again, that's another example. They might not approve of the methods, but they've worked together for so long and have done so much good, not only for the forces of good in heaven, but just for the people in Chicago in general, that they're willing to overlook it. It doesn't mean that these characters are evil for allowing that to happen. It wasn't a good thing, but it falls somewhere in that je ne sais quoi gray area. It's nothing that is quite so well defined, and it's something that, again, comes about from a certain amount of context there within the story. It's something that feels earned over time. The lawful good character said their piece, but they were willing to forgive Harry for what he'd done because his motives weren't without reason or merit, and they're called to forgive the sins of others. In particular, in Harry's case, he's done a lot of good for the city. Now, for the flip side of this coin, say the chaotic alignments, very easily as well fall into the chaotic stupid category, especially chaotic neutral, and to a certain extent chaotic evil. Chaotic neutral, though, players take that as license, as I mentioned before, to just go absolutely apeshit and just go nuts. They go full ham, they do all the wacky, zany, just uproarious things, and it can get a little bit annoying at the table. Now, players that are able to focus a little more still come with characters that are chaotic neutral, and a great example of a chaotic neutral character that I like to reference is Captain Jack Sparrow, also Deadpool. In particular from the Deadpool movies, where he teams up with characters of a more lawful alignment, like I'm forgetting his name. Colossus, that's who it was. He teams up with Colossus, one of the X-Men. Colossus is definitely more in that lawful alignment, in particular lawful good. Now, Deadpool still does a bunch of crazy crap throughout both of the films, but overall, he's still willing to work with and help Colossus, and Colossus is willing to work with and help with him. He gives him a ton of crap about everything, but it's as much a defense mechanism and trying to keep Colossus at arm's length as it is a way to just be funny and hilarious for the audience. but these characters are willing to. The nice thing about chaotic neutral is they don't have any qualms really about who they work with. They don't have any qualms about obeying rules for a given portion of time. And the important thing is, if your character is obeying the laws, there has to be a reason for it. Especially for a chaotic neutral character who really values their own personal freedom, their own survival, their own personal gain. They're not willing to advance those things entirely at the expense of others, entirely at the detriment of others, and neither are they going to be so self-sacrificing all the time that they're willing to put themselves at risk for others. They'll be more inclined to do so if there's some sort of tangible benefit. And that's the thing right there, a tangible benefit. A chaotic neutral character could come into town and immediately start lighting things on fire, picking pockets, robbing everybody, planting evidence here and there, and getting everybody fighting, and just being a general little bastard agent of chaos. But there's also advantages to obeying the law, laying low, and just kind of keeping your cover intact. And that's just to go unnoticed so they can pull off even bigger schemes, or just lose whatever heat may be on them from other sources like City Watch, bounty hunters, other gangs or guilds. Whatever the case may be, there can be reasons and motivators for a chaotic neutral character to keep a low profile and act smart. It's chaotic neutral, not chaotic stupid. You're not going to be doing stupid, crazy, zany things all the time. But if the crazy and zany happens to find you, no reason you can't be a little bit ridiculous. Again, like Jack Sparrow, when he first shows up at Port Royal, his ship is sinking, and so he just stands triumphantly and majestically atop of the mast as the ship drops into the harbor, and he just scoots right along onto the dock. But instead of raising a fuss or trying to duck the guy asking for a name to register his ship as he docks in Port Royal, instead of shanking the guy, shoving him into the water, he just goes, "What do you say to 3 shillings and we forget the name?" And he just pays the guy off and bribes him right there. So, again, chaotic neutral, not chaotic stupid. And this applies for any of the chaotic alignments, really, even chaotic evil. Chaotic evil, while it's described regularly as the alignment of the violently, reprehensibly, and almost irredeemably insane and violent, it's still, even the crazy people, even this kind of just nebulous force of bloodlust and violence can still have moments of clarity, or even low cunning or intellect, however you want to describe it, where they realize need to keep a low profile. Or if they're adventuring with, say, a lawful good character, I could stab him and murder him, eat his flesh, salt the wounds, rip out his sweetmeats and all of that, but he might actually be a threat, and you know what? It's handy having him between me and the monsters. I'll work with him and keep him alive. And you know what? Maybe even me pretending to be pious will be really funny, particularly when we're both sitting down to pray, and that's when I stab him in the eye. So that can be the initial thought process for a chaotic evil character working with lawful neutral, lawful good, and trying to get everybody to lower their guard, make them think, oh, he's actually not that crazy, he's not that bad, or look, we're redeeming him, we're building him up into something better, someone better. And who knows, maybe over time, over the course of gameplay, part of that character's arc can be that they are being redeemed, that they are improving. Maybe they go from chaotic neutral to more of a chaotic evil stance, or they can even go over to being neutral evil, still self-serving, but not so thoughtlessly and mindlessly destructive. There's so many different examples, but these are just some tips, tricks, and ideas on how to play these alignments with a bit more subtlety, maybe even in a way to get your characters to work together. By no means is this video comprehensive, because there's 9 different alignments, and there are so many different ways to portray characters under each individual alignment that to make a video long enough to cover this would probably go on far too long. Longer, certainly, than I'd be willing to record and then have to edit later. But what are your thoughts? What are your ideas for how the different alignments can gel together? Certainly, the neutral alignments also have a little bit of more leeway, ease, and freedom in working with other alignments, but I want to hear your thoughts down below. So please jump down into the comments section and get to typing away and let everybody know what you think. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. You guys have yourselves a good night.